So recently I got a message on Instagram from a fan named Jess, and she was basically wondering what my process is for listening to, analyzing, and then critiquing music. This kind of thing always comes as a bit of a shock to me because I can't emphasize this enough, I am truly just some guy that decided to start sharing his opinions online. I have wondered the same exact thing for people like Fantano, but I don't know. It just blows my mind that anybody would care about these specifics for me. I gave Jess a quick little summary, but it got me thinking more and more about the ways that I consume this art form, and that's what we'll be discussing today. This will be a very casual conversation, discussing random topics that come to mind within this concept, and more than ever before, I need to reiterate, this is just how I do things. I'm not trying to force anything on anyone, but these are the mantras and perspectives that I find helpful and feel comfortable with when it comes to listening to music. Everything is different for everybody, all of the time, forever. And I'm curious to hear your own methods in the comments below. First and foremost, my gut reaction to a song or album is always going to start with how it makes me feel, rather than worrying too much about theory. There are certainly times where music theory is bound to be used as evidence or front and center for a dialogue about trends or whatever, and obviously it's always there, regardless of if we're talking about it or not, but here, if you watch music-related videos on YouTube, I'm sure you know Rick Beato. He's a very popular creator, and I'm not hating on him when I say this, but he seems to look at things in the complete opposite way that I choose to. Any review that I've seen from him, any reaction to something he's hearing for the first time, every video explaining why a particular song is good, why new music sucks, and so on and so on, it's this.
So, starts in F major, so it's 2, 5, 1, which is a minor third down, then I hear a major third down to F, then I hear a major second up to G. D flat, E flat, F, A flat, B flat. It's just a perfect fourth interval. All those upper extensions of nines, the sus4s, the sharp 11s.
And like, honestly, for me,
we do not care.
Sure, music theory can be very interesting and worth talking about, but I think constantly hearing songs through this lens comes off as a very robotic way to experience art. If there's a weird time signature on a top 40 track, or you want to hyperfixate on the harmonies in a Post Malone song, then sure, be my guest and go off, but personally, I'd rather talk about emotion and intent with a little bit of context and get back to the exact chord progressions and whatnot later on. Discussing emotion is a perfect segue to one of my absolute favorite phrases that I bring up in some of my videos. When an album, song, movie, or whatever else is described with "it knows what it is," or "it's good at what it is," the point being made is that this thing is not doing anything revolutionary and unique, but it's working with the same old stuff in such a fantastic way that its quality outweighs any need for originality. Carly Rae Jepsen's Emotion is a dance pop album released in 2015. You have heard thousands of songs that sound pretty similar to what's on here, but the record still succeeds anyway. When you're able to find the absolute essence of whatever subgenre and mood you're digging into, this can be just as exciting as hearing something completely unique. Different doesn't always mean good, and familiar doesn't always mean bad. With that being said, I think the more you venture out into the musical landscape, the hungrier you'll be for anything going against whatever the norm is at that moment. There is one extremely popular artist that I tend to kind of bash on the channel, and it's just because I'm bored by what they've put out over the last 5 years or so. Drake is fine. If you try to isolate these albums, I don't think any of them are too bad, but this musician could be doing so much more. He's shown that he can go back and forth between R&B rap, hip-hop bangers, and then a wonderful fusion of the two, but then complacency. Doing the same old thing without being good at what it is, and I personally lose interest. And it's perfect timing for this because I saw 100 gecs in concert a few nights ago, and they were refreshing and extraordinary. Definitely some of the most fun I've ever had at a show. In a world where Drake is sleepwalking his way to the top of the charts and Grammy nominations, then I hear an album that sounds like this. This is what's gonna make me enthusiastic and have a better chance of moving me in some way. 100 gecs are playful, funny, rebellious, sarcastic, there's 100% some level of irony there, and I could go on and on. These are the adjectives and vibes that come through within their tracks, entire projects, music videos, etc. Context matters. Music does not exist in a vacuum. And even if you want to argue that your first reaction and opinions of an artist that you've never listened to are completely pure and not based on prior knowledge of them, there will always be some kind of bias. Once we accept that we're constantly comparing art that's new to us to what we've already consumed before, it helps show that context and intent does matter, and those things lead to determining authenticity. Ed Sheeran and Chance the Rapper's most recent projects feel less genuine because we know what they're capable of and what they've portrayed themselves as through their music in the past. But that's not me saying that changing your sound is automatically a bad thing. Taylor Swift going from Fearless to Folklore was a natural progression. You can listen to one Ween album and it will feel completely different than another. Kanye's entire discography is one big example of this. You just have to judge for yourself and make your own opinion based on whether or not the music in that context works for you. I love the line off of The Life of Pablo, "Now if I f this model and she just bleached her asshole and I get bleach on my t-shirt, I'ma feel like an asshole," but it's because The Life of Pablo is this raw, self-indulgent, messy critique of fame and celebrity. Now imagine if you went back 12 years to The College Dropout, you were listening to this very sincere, conscious look at Kanye's upbringing, and that line was on Family Business. It would be terrible. When I first heard King Crimson, I think when I was in high school, I really enjoyed it, but things became much more impressive after I learned that this album was made in the 60s. With this level of timeless innovation, you could tell me that it was from the future and I'd believe you. I saw Lil Dicky's Save That Money going viral when it came out, and my initial reaction was that it was a relatively funny, well-executed novelty song. Then I learned that he wants to be taken seriously as a rapper, I heard more of his music, and my opinion of him became pretty negative. I'm firing a lot of different examples at you right now, but I hope that my point came through. I'm more than happy to give every new release a chance, but having opinions on music is not black and white. There are albums that I did not care for when I first heard them that I love now. There are musicians that I used to be obsessed with that I don't listen to at all anymore. How much you like and appreciate something can depend on a million different factors, and then those thoughts can change over time with you growing as a person. Remember that thing I said about everything changing for everyone all the time, forever? Keep that in mind when somebody shares their opinion. Before I share my most important point, I want to give a more literal, slightly boring answer to how I listen to music, in case anybody's been waiting for that this whole time, and I've been babbling and being pretentious. Equipment-wise, I have Beyerdynamic DT990s that I love, Rocket speakers on either side of my desk that are absolutely insane, and then I can't remember the specifics, but I got a cheap subwoofer in my car that's better than nothing. If I'm ever checking something out for the first time, I try to listen using one of those methods because it's much closer to how the artist actually intended for everybody to hear their music. I went a long time as a music lover without having any kind of nice headphones or speakers, and I promise you, the difference is night and day. It's been genuinely life-changing since I upgraded years ago. Studio-grade stuff is not as expensive as you might think, and I highly recommend looking into better gear if you haven't already. Unless it's a first reaction sort of thing, I've listened to any album or song that I'm doing a video on a minimum of like 3 or 4 times. Obviously projects that I love I've gone back to hundreds of times, but if it's a rising artist video or something, I make sure to do a few re-listens, one just enjoying it, at least one time with the lyrics in front of me, but as always, it depends. And I've talked about this before in my video about Fantano and criticism in general, but my most crucial point when it comes to any of this is that you should be able to say why you like or dislike certain music. If you're being an active music listener and, you know, listening to the music as opposed to somebody just throwing on a Spotify playlist in the background or something, tell me your specific reactions to the song. This can obviously go back to theory, but assuming the average person doesn't have a strong background in that department, try to start by asking yourself questions like this. Do you like the lyrics? What about the lyrics? Have you heard certain cliches before? Do they work in this context? Did the words make you feel a strong emotion? Did they hurt you? Did it make you happy? What about the instrumental? How does it sound like it was recorded? Is there depth to it? Does it sound a little too basic? Or is it clearly the product of a lot of hard work? What do you think about the structure of the song? Is it boring, repetitive, or is it special in some way? Not that I'm seriously asking myself these questions when I'm listening to something. I don't want this to feel like you're doing a book report, but I think you know what I mean. The more you can discuss things in detail, the more you'll get out of music in general, the more you'll demand a high quality product, and so on. This whole video might have been unnecessary to many of you, but if there's one person out there that's gonna open their mind and focus on music a little bit more, that's all I ask. Thank you for watching that video. It's something a little bit different, a little bit more casual, conversational. If you want to support the channel, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You can follow me on social media at RenshawHS. You can buy my merch, support my Patreon, and thank you again. I'll see you soon.